In this video, we are comparing fractions using the benchmarks of 0, 1/2, and 1 whole. You can see that we have two different fraction amounts and we have number lines. We can go ahead and draw the number lines and show where the fractions would be. And then we're really going to look and see how they compare to the benchmarks. So we want to notice if they're close to 0, close to the half, if they are more than a half, or if they're really close to a whole. That helps us to compare the fractions. So for this first fraction, we have 3/4. So we'll go ahead and put 3/4. And then the second fraction is 1/5. Now be really careful when you're putting your second fraction that your wholes are the same size. So make sure you start your 0 at the same place, and then make sure that your whole is as big as the whole is on the top number line. And then we'll go ahead and divide it into fifths. We have 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, and then 5/5. So 1/5 is right here. Now, as we're comparing, because today we're using the benchmarks, we want to really be able to look at the fraction and notice how close it is to the whole, or notice if it's close to the half. So I see that 3/4 is right in the middle between 1/2 or 2/4 and a whole. I can see that it's bigger than the half. When I look at 1/5, I know that's just one piece, and so 1/5 is very close to 0. We know that that fraction is smaller. So 3/4 is greater than 1/5. Go ahead and do numbers 2, 3, and 4. You can really use the number line to help you come up with your answer. All right, now that you're to number 5, notice that we don't have the fraction number lines anymore. So please feel free to continue to draw fraction number lines on a piece of scratch paper or use those fraction bars if they help. So it looks like we're comparing 1/10 to 2/4. Can you think of what the answer is? If you know that 1/10 is less than 2/4, you are exactly right. If you knew that 1/10 is less than 2/4, great job. How did your brain know that it was less than? And if you didn't know what the answer is, how could you figure it out? When we look at 1/10, there's a few things we might notice. First of all, we know that tenths are really small pieces, and there's only one of those pieces. If we're thinking about the benchmarks, I also recognize that 1/10 is very close to 0. It's just one piece away from 0. So I know that this is a small number. When I think about 2/4, I know that those are two pieces, and fourths are bigger than tenths. So that's one way you can reason it out. You may have also recognized 2/4 is equivalent to 1/2. And we know that it takes 5/10 to equal a half. All of those thoughts are great and they help you figure the answer out. Now down here we just have some questions to help us remember how the fractions relate to the benchmarks. So we'll just start with 1/10. 1/10 is blank away from 0. We know that it's just 1/10 away. Now this one we have to think about, where is a half? How does 1/10 compare to the half? You might want to write down 5/10 because 5/10 is equal to a half. So mentally we can just think, how far is 1/10 away from 5/10? I know that that's 4 pieces away. That's 4/10 away. 10/10 is equal to a whole. So if I'm going from 1/10 to 10/10, that's 9 pieces away, 9/10 away. Now, if this was really confusing, definitely get a piece of paper out and draw your fraction number line. Because if you put 1/10 on the number line, you'll be able to see that it's 1 piece away from 0. You'll be able to count the pieces to 5/10, and you'll be able to see that that's 4/10. And you'll be able to count the pieces to the whole, and you'll come up with 9/10. So definitely draw the fraction number line if you need, or you can use your fraction bars. Okay, let's think about 2/4. 2/4 is 2 pieces away from 0, so 2/4 away from 0. I know that 2/4 is actually equal to 1/2. So I'm going to put that it's 0 away from 2/4. It's equal. It's at that point. So there's a 0 distance. And then I know that it's right in the middle. So in order to get from 2/4 to 4/4, that's 2 pieces. So we're 2/4 away from the whole. Let's go ahead and go on to number 6. 7/8 compared to 3/12. Which one do you think is bigger? Can you get a feel for which fraction is more? If you're thinking 7/8 is bigger, you are right. 7/8 is greater than 3/12. Now, how did you know your answer? If we think about 7/8, that's only 1 piece away from 8/8. So it is almost at the whole. It's almost a whole. If you think about 3/12, we know that 6/12 is half. So 3/12 is less than a half. It's just 3 pieces greater than 0. It's kind of right in the middle between 0 and a half. Because 3/12 is less than a half, 7/8 is more than a half, we know that 7/8 is greater than 3/12. Okay, let's answer these questions. 7/8 is 7/8 away from 0. We have to think about eighths and how they relate to 1/2. 4/8 equals a half. So how many pieces would 7/8 be from 4/8? So if I'm going from 4/8 to 5/8 to 6/8 to 7/8, that's 3 pieces, that's 3/8. And then here we have 8/8. 7/8 is just 1 piece away, 1/8 away from 1 whole. 3/12. 3/12 is 3/12 away from 0. 6/12 is the half. So 3/12 is just 3 pieces away from 6/12. 12/12 equals the whole. So we're just 9 pieces away from 12/12. And that finishes up number 6. Go ahead and work on number 7 and number 8 when you're ready. Start watching the video again to see how to do number 9.